Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1988 action film Above the Law. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Brian for requesting this review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The links to all three are in the video description down below, and I will try to get your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, Above the Law is Steven Seagal's first strike when it comes to his career and his filmography. And I think it's a pretty solid strike overall. It's not something that I would say is a great movie, though. It's a film that I like, but I don't love. It's one of those action films where there are things about it that I genuinely enjoy, but then there's a lot of stuff that I'm just kind of indifferent on, and as a result, I honestly feel that the majority of the films that Seagal did in his prime after this are better. But that's just me personally. I know I'm kind of in the minority on that. Now, Above the Law is directed by Andrew Davis, and prior to this, he did other action films like Code of Silence with Chuck Norris, which I honestly really like. In fact, actually, I like that more than Above the Law. And Steven Seagal was a fan of that film, and so was some other people who were involved with this production. So they decided to give Andrew the job, and I think he was a really great choice to direct this. He did a good job showcasing Chuck Norris in a bit of a different light with Code of Silence, and he was able to do the same here with a new star, a new, fresh face in Steven Seagal. Now, the direction is not something that's full of inventive camera angles or something. There's a few moments like that, but most of the time, it's very grounded. It's in a lot of ways gritty, and I think for the kind of film that this is and the kind of action star that Steven Seagal uh, would wind up becoming and would show himself to be in this movie, I think that that's the perfect approach for this movie, to have like a grittier, more down and dirty kind of approach to direction. That's got a little bit of that seediness to it, but not in a way where it comes across like it's sleazy or it's a grindhouse or anything. But you got a little bit of that seediness, and I think Davis did a good job of really exemplifying that with his direction, with his framing, with his shot selection, with the different types of camera work that he utilized. But where Davis really shines to me with this film in terms of the direction is when it comes to the fight scenes, when it comes to Seagal showcasing his Aikido. He does it with wide shots where you get to see everything, you get to see every move, you get to see every broken bone, and I think that really does provide a extra amount of impact for these action sequences. Also, the car chase sequences feature a good amount of energy to them, and overall, I like the film when it comes to its visual style and when it comes to Andrew Davis's direction. I do feel that he did a much better job though in later on films, in films later on in his career, like Under Siege with Seagal and The Fugitive, which I think is his magnum opus, so to speak. Above the Law is written by Stephen Pressfield, Andrew Davis, and Ronald Shusett. Now, Ronald Shusett is a name that you might be familiar with because he was one of the co-writers for Alien. And I don't know how much of this script he was responsible for, though. I'm pretty sure most of it is more of the work of Pressfield and Andrew Davis, because Andrew Davis was also responsible for the story along with Seagal. And the story, it deals a lot with the CIA. Specifically, the CIA and their involvement in the Vietnam War, and then the CIA and their involvement with arms dealing and with trading different types of explosives on the black market, and their involvement as well with organized crime. And you have this police officer, this detective in the Chicago Police Department named Nico Toscani, who actually used to work for the CIA as an operative, and he decided to leave the CIA altogether after he saw some shit go down in Vietnam that he was not uh, uh, very pleased with, to say the least. Like he didn't like what was going on and how the CIA guys were going about getting their information and how they were breaking the law, and so he decided to cut ties with the CIA. Then years later, he winds up becoming a detective in the Chicago Police Department, and he's got a partner named Jax, and him and his partner, they're investigating a drug ring. They bust two of the dealers, and then they wind up finding C4 explosives during the bust instead of cocaine. And so that then winds up leading to Toscani and his family being targeted by these ex CIA guys, headed by the same son of a bitch who really was the main reason why Nico left the CIA in Zagon. This just ruthless, twisted bastard who likes to torture people with like some kind of true serum, and really relishes the opportunity to uh, inflict pain on people. And Nico, he's also related to people in the mob and the mafia. The script doesn't do a lot with that, though. In fact, a later Seagal film did more with the mafia and the mob influence in Out for Justice. Here it's just kind of there, but it's not really something that's that prominent in the script. And Nico really starts to get involved with the case, though, once a priest at his local church is murdered when a bomb is set off in the church. And now Nico is deciding to take it personally because he was close to the priest. And then also, I think his mother-in-law, she winds up getting shrapnel in the eye, and she goes to the hospital. And now Nico decides to take it upon himself to find these guys who are trying to sell this C4 and take them out before they wind up taking him and his family out for good. And he does some investigating with the help of his partner Jax, who does her own research and also winds up getting shot later on, but she was wearing a vest, so she's okay. And what you have is a bit of a mystery involving this priest, in terms of there's this other priest who came in from outside of the US. I think he was like a immigrant, and this other priest, he knows something about Zagon because Zagon is in on this whole C4 trading and everything. And this guy, he Father Tomasino, he was the original target for the explosion, for the bombing. But it was this other priest, that the other father, that wound up getting blown up instead. And now Nico and his team have to try to find this priest before Zagon does. But Zagon actually finds him first, but thankfully Nico does wind up getting there in time to save him. Not before his partner still gets shot though. And Nico thinks his partner is dead. So now he's really going to try to nail Zagon to the wall. But then he finds out from a friend of his that she's okay. But because his family is still being targeted by these bad guys, he still decides to take the fight to Zagon. And he goes around beating up different guys who in the neighborhood trying to get information about Zagon and the other guys who are working for him, specifically this guy named Salvano, who I think is like a mob guy. And there's a fun little scene with Salvano in the car and Nico on top of the car grabbing him through the window. And there's some other fun little moments here and there with some bits of fisticuffs, bits of beatdowns with Nico and some random, thugs in the neighborhood. Like this one guy who gets his hand cut off, this other guy who shows up and tries to start some shit and then just gets knocked out with one punch. The FBI is also involved too in trying to throw a wrench into things. And that leads to one of my favorite lines in the movie where this FBI agent named Agent Neely, he's given Toscani shit. He's like, listen, Toscani, I want to congratulate you. You just made number 4 in the most wanted list. And Nico's like, number 4? I want to be number 1. So that was a great line. And there's a few lines in this that are definitely pretty memorable. There's some good dialogue in this. Like there's a great exchange between Nico and one of his former partners in the CIA and Nelson Fox, where you have this whole bit where Nico's talking to him and he's like, "Tell me something, old buddy. Do we kill our own senators now? Why not? The Romans did. Are we the fucking Romans? We're an empire too. You don't believe that shit for a minute, Nelson." And then the whole speech that he has later on about the CIA. You know something, Fox? Right now in Europe, they're trying some 80-year-old camp guard for Nazi war crimes. And all around our country, they got guys on death row for murdering 1, 2, 3 guys. And they probably deserve what they're gonna get. But you and I, we know a couple of people that are personally responsible for the death of 50,000 non-military personnel? Librarians, teachers, doctors, women, children? All dead. We've wiped out entire cultures. And for what? Not one CIA agent has ever been tried, much less accused of any crimes. You guys think you're above the law. Well, you ain't above mine. So I think that's a great bit of dialogue. And there are some other moments here and there dialogue wise that are good, but those are definitely, in my opinion, the best lines when it comes to this script. And ultimately, it leads to the reveal that there is a big plan in place for Zagon. He's going to try to take out the senator who wants to take away some of the protections the CIA has, and he wants to bust some of the CIA agents who did some illegal stuff in Vietnam and are still doing illegal activities at the moment. And so Zagon and his CIA buddies, his dirty CIA buddies, don't want anything to do with that. They don't want him to stop their fun. So they decide to set up a plan to be able to take him out. But Nico winds up stopping them after Zagon captures him. After there definitely a fair amount of a struggle. Like it wasn't easy for them to take Nico out because prior to that they tried to take him out multiple times, shoot up a car he was in, all these different moments where they really tried to take him out, but he was always one step ahead of them, or he would take the fight to them, like in this scene in the parking garage, which I think is one of the best action scenes in the movie. It definitely features the best kill in the film, where Salvano, he winds up hanging on the back of a car that Nico is in, and Nico backs it off a parking structure, and then the guy falls to his death on top of a train track. So he falls right onto the subway tracks and gets electrocuted. But it all culminates in this scene at the end when the bad guy, he actually has Nico captured. Zagon's got Nico captured. He's got him tied to a chair. He injects Nico with this drug, and Nico, I guess, hulks up though and is able to resist the effects, or fake. I think he fakes being affected by it really fast, so then he can break out of the bonds and then bust some heads, and then punches. I think he either elbows or he punches Zagon in the face so hard that it busts his nose, and then he winds up breaking. I think he breaks Zagon's neck. Like, he grabs him, he puts his arm around his throat and just snaps his neck. And of course, he does. He also breaks his arm, right at the elbow, which is a signature Seagal move, where he just grabs your arm and just bends it backwards, until you hear it crunch. And Zagon is taken out. The rest of his crew is taken out in that one moment. The senator is saved. He thanks Nico. Nico winds up going back with his family, and that's above the law. There are some things that I didn't mention, like a subplot that was focusing primarily on the former partner that Nico had in the CIA and Fox. There was also some other stuff going on with the police and the FBI. There was also more scenes with Nico and his wife. And a big part of why I just like this movie, but I don't love it, is, in all honesty, because of this script. There are some great things in this screenplay. I think the overall concept of it, a cop who used to be in the CIA going up against rogue former CIA agents who he has a past with. I don't mind that concept, but I don't really feel the script did a good enough job making Zagon feel like he really was somebody who was this villain, that was somebody that was a significant thorn, so to speak, in Nico's side. Like, he was a problem, and he was definitely a threat, but I never really felt like he was really making it personal. Okay, he blew up the church, and the priest guy died, and his mother-in-law or his mom got hit in the eye, but to me that wasn't enough, because it wasn't really like Zagon himself planted the bomb. So I think there should have been more in the script where Zagon is just constantly antagonizing Nico throughout the story. Like, Nico will corner him, and then he'll start fucking with him and talk about the church bombing, and then talk about, the priest, and really mess with Nico and get him even more riled up by insulting the priest, saying something along the lines of, well, I hope he said his prayers, before I blew him to kingdom come, stuff like that. Or the whole sequence later on with the partner, he could really go after Nico for that. You're lucky she was wearing a vest, because otherwise I would have blown her chest wide open. Or the whole thing with his wife, and he starts talking about his wife and kid, and talking about how he's gonna target them next, and he's gonna have some fun with them. He's gonna tie them up, and give them a little bit of his special elixir, his special concoction of drugs, and have fun, like something like that. Like, he wasn't as sadistic and vicious as I think this villain honestly should have been. And then also on top of that, he wasn't in it that much. you saw more scenes with Salvano, which, okay, that's fine. I enjoy the Salvano scenes because they're entertaining, but not in the way I think the writer intended. Like, the writer intended this guy to be intimidating. And apparently, I think it was Seagal or was somebody else who, I think it was a director, Andrew Davis, who was like, this guy's short. I don't know how the hell he can be that intimidating in terms of going up against Seagal. And he got the part though because he wowed some people in a screen test, including I think maybe Seagal himself. But when you watch the movie, he's not intimidating at all. It's honestly comical when it comes to his scenes. And I don't think they're supposed to be that way, but they're entertaining in how comical they are. You know, hey boss, stop the fucking car! Like you know, like. But I don't really think that's supposed to be that funny. And so a lot of the scenes when it comes to the bad guys, you're focusing a lot on Salvano, and he's not intimidating. Then you have some other stuff with this bartender guy who doesn't even have a name. It's just a bartender guy who's just a prick. And then you have the other stuff with Nico and his family, and the scenes with him and his wife are particularly boring because it's just nothing but, oh, the wife is worried, the wife is crying, the wife is sad, the wife is it. There's just a one note character with the wife, with Sarah. So when it cuts back to those scenes, it just isn't really that interesting to me. It's not that compelling. Like I said, if you had scenes where Henry Silva's character Zagon is like personally, going after the wife and toying with her and toying with Nico, then it would actually feel like there's more to it. But you don't really get a lot of that. And then you have the stuff with the FBI guys, Agent Halloran, Han, and Neely, and that isn't as effective either. And even the stuff with the priest guy and Father Tomasino wasn't really that interesting to me. And then the stuff with Detective Lukic, who is the partner or the friend of, well, he's not really the partner. The partner is Jax, but another a friend in the department in Lukic, um, or a guy who works for the department who's, it almost kind of seems like you might be playing both sides, but you're not entirely sure. Like, there's just a lot of characters in this, and not all of them are really as compelling as Nico and Zagon, and even Jax. Like Jax, I honestly would have liked to have seen her do more. Like, she was in it and she did her own investigating, but in terms of like getting involved in the action, she really doesn't do a whole lot. She spends most of the second half of the movie just, you know, in the hospital because she got shot, and doesn't really get it that involved when it comes to the finale or any of the action later on. So I do not think that it's a bad screenplay by any means, but I think it could have been better than it was. Um, One thing I do want to mention when it comes to this script, though, that as a positive, before I go on to talk about the cast, is I really did like the opening that utilizes photos of Seagal when he was young and talks about Nico's origins and how he went to Japan and studied Aikido, and then how he became a CIA agent. And then the whole stuff with him in Vietnam. Like, I really liked that opening. But some of the stuff, like once you get to Chicago and you're establishing the characters and establishing the plot, it's just not as compelling as the stuff earlier on. And I just think it's kind of, I wouldn't say disjointed, but it is kind of an inconsistent script to me in terms of the quality. Like, you'll have some great moments with great lines, and then you'll have some other moments that are just not as good and I'm more indifferent on. And it just leads to a screenplay to me that is just all right. It's an okay script. Now, the cast, on the other hand, I think it's quite good. I mean, Steven Seagal, say whatever you want to say about him. No, he's not the greatest actor in the world, but he works for the character that he's playing in this movie. He's got the kind of wise guy attitude, but that fits. Like he is kind of a wise guy. Like the guy has Italian in his blood. He is actually playing a character who has ties to the mob, and he's got that wise guy enforcer kind of vibe. But he's got his own little bit of signature charm as well. He's not as charismatic as some other movie stars, but he's still got his own signature sense and blend of charisma. And when it comes to him kicking ass, like he's very believable. Yeah, he's kind of a lanky, tall, gangly guy in this, but he's got some really good moves. Like his Aikido is like super fast, super quick. And he does a great job making you buy that he's like taking people out with one punch or breaking people into, pieces, busting people's limbs and breaking arms and cracking skulls. Like you legitimately do buy him in that kind of role. You also buy him with a gun, being pretty adept at using a pistol or any other sort of form of firearm. You buy him as a cop. You buy him as somebody who can be the lead in an action film. And for an unknown at the time, that's a pretty big deal, if you ask me. Because it easily could have been one of those things where, like, man, this guy can't hack it. He can't cut it. Why did they give this guy a movie? But no, that's not the case at all. Like you watch this movie and you're like, I get it. I get why Warner Brothers was impressed by this guy and wanted to give him a film. Pam Grier is also really good in this as his partner, even though she doesn't have as much to do as I would personally prefer. But it's still a good performance by her. Henry Silva is as slimy and evil and as big of a bastard as always as Aegon. Uh, does a good job with the few scenes that he's in, but he's so good in this. I wanted more of him, not less. Ron Dean as Detective Lukic, he was all right. Danny Faraldo as Tony Savano. It was an enjoyable, entertaining performance to watch, but the guy was about as intimidating as a gnat. Sharon Stone, she's just a crying, harried, worried wife. That's all she is in this. It's nice to see her, uh, but at the same time, like there's really not a whole lot to this performance. Uh, the same can be said for Nicholas Kosenko as Agent Neely. I did a good job jumping into that lake. Uh, and then you have Chelcie Ross, who played Nelson Fox. He was really good in it. Um, he always does a good job playing these kind of scummy guys. So it was a good job from him, but it's something that's definitely in his wheelhouse. There are actually a couple more actors I want to mention real quick, though, before I move on to talking about the cinematography and other stuff. Michael Rooker and John C. Reilly, because they play thugs in the bar. They play guys who are in the bar sequence when Nico is going to the bar to try to find this girl who is a relative of his, and he found out that she's might be at this bar staying with this guy, and so he winds up roughing up a bunch of patrons in the bar and kicking a bunch of guys' asses in order to get the information he needs. Two of the guys in the bar are Michael Rooker and John C. Reilly. So I find that to be pretty cool that two actors who would go on to do quite a bit when it comes to their careers later on had little roles in Seagal's first film in Above the Law. Now the movie features cinematography by Robert Steadman, and it's pretty steady. No pun intended. It's a solid looking film. It's got some nice cinematography in a few sequences, good shots of Chicago, and he definitely does match what Davis was trying to do with the film visually. Uh, it's also edited by Michael Brown, which is pretty cool. That there's an editor who edited this movie who has the same name as me. He also edited Jaws of Revenge, but you know, hey, you got to take it the work when you can get it. And I think his editing in this is pretty good as well. Like, it's a film that I think some people pointed out is kind of choppy looking because there's some more violent scenes that were chopped up, but I don't really look at the film that way. I don't think Brown's editing was too choppy. Like, I felt like he did a pretty good job covering that up. And he did a great job matching Seagal's uh, fresh, raw, newfound sense of, brutality and intensity when it comes to the fight scenes with Seagal and his Aikido. So, yeah, I think Brown did a good job editing this. It features a score by David Michael Frank, and the score is a score that I like, but I also don't love. I think David Michael Frank would go on to do so much better scores in Hard to Kill and Out for Justice. Here, it has its moments, but there's a couple bits that just feel a little off to me. They sound off. They don't really match the tone of the scene properly for my tastes, and it's not as memorable of a score as Hard to Kill for me personally. But it's still a good score by David Michael Frank. And overall, I think it is a good movie. I just don't think it's a great film. That's just how I feel about it. As a first time out, you could do a lot worse than this. And I think Seagal definitely made a pretty good first impression with Above the Law. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Above the Law. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.